Hello, everyone. Welcome to Life Plus Grace in Life, where grace flows through life and your life gets a plus. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what's the real difference between a successful life and a beautiful one? It's a question that sounds simple, but wow, it can change everything. Today, we're diving into a really powerful shift in thinking, a story that started for one pastor on his 40th birthday, and it just might change how you measure your own life. It all began with this one thought, a simple, kind of jarring realization from Pastor Peter Wan. This was the exact moment when the timeline of his entire life felt like it just flipped upside down. So, what kicked this all off? Well, it was a sudden shift, all triggered by a big milestone that, let's be honest, many of us face with some pretty mixed feelings. The Big 4-0, his 40th birthday. For a lot of people, this is kind of the official welcome party to midlife. It's that point where you might look up and realize, whoa, there might be less road ahead of me than there is in the rearview mirror. And in a nearness like that, it can change everything. Okay, let's break this down, because it's so true. When you're young, your whole life is about counting up. You can't wait to be 16 to drive, 18 to vote, 21, every single year feels like a new achievement, a level up. But then you hit a certain point, for him it was 40, and the math just completely reverses. You start thinking, okay, if I live to be 80, I've got 40 years left, now 39, now 38. You're not at the starting line anymore. You can see the finish line. And the big question becomes, how do you want to run this last lap? So this whole new perspective sent him searching. He decided to do something he'd never done before, a solo retreat. He went way out to a remote cabin, deep in the mountains. No phone, no internet. Just to think, to figure out what the next 40 years were really going to be about. And it was out there in the total quiet of nature that something just broke through. He was hiking down a trail, and suddenly he saw it. This absolutely breathtaking lake nestled in the valley below. And the sight, out of nowhere, was so beautiful that it just moved him to tears. And as he just sat there, taking it all in, he felt this question pop up from deep inside him. It was so simple, but so profound. How would you describe this lake? The answer was immediate. Obvious. It's beautiful. And right there, bam, that was the light bulb moment. Think about it. We look at God's creation, a mountain, an ocean, a lake, and our word for it is beautiful. We would never look at a lake and say, wow, that's a really successful lake, right? Success is a human invention. It's a metric we use for competition, for achievement. But beauty is something totally different. It's an inherent quality, something to just be appreciated, not ranked or measured. This whole realization led him to two incredibly powerful metaphors, right from the book of Genesis, that perfectly capture this choice that we all face in life. It's the choice between cultivating a garden or building a tower. I mean, really think about this for a second. Humanity's original job description was to be gardeners, to tend, to cultivate, to create beauty right there in the Garden of Eden. But somewhere along the way, we switched projects. We stopped gardening and we started building the Tower of Babel. And what was the goal of the tower? It wasn't beauty. It was success. It was all about building something taller, bigger, and better than the next person, a giant monument to our own achievement. So this tension between success and beauty, how does it actually play out in our day-to-day lives? Well, there's an incredible story from the Gospels that gives us the perfect case study on this clash of values. So picture the scene. Jesus is at a dinner party, and all of a sudden, a woman named Mary walks in holding this alabaster jar. Now, this isn't just any old perfume. This stuff is crazy expensive, worth about an entire year's wages. And get this, she doesn't just put a little dab on his wrist. She breaks the entire jar and pours all of it over Jesus' head. The disciples' reaction is instant. And, from a certain point of view, it's totally logical. They're thinking like tower builders. They're looking at the world through a spreadsheet. They immediately calculate the monetary value and they call it a waste, thinking of all the practical, successful things that money could have been used for. But Jesus, he sees it completely differently. He doesn't see a waste of resources at all. He sees this incredibly profound act of love and devotion. He looks right past the price tag and he sees the heart behind it. And he reframes the whole thing with 4 words: a beautiful thing. And right here, you see the two value systems laid out side by side. The action, pouring the perfume, is exactly the same, but the judgments are polar opposites. For the disciples, who were operating on the logic of success and efficiency, it was a total failure of resource management. For Jesus, it was an expression of love so pure, so extravagant, the only word for it was beautiful. Okay, so this is the big question. How do we start to shift from a life of frantic tower building to one of peacefully cultivating a garden? Well, Mary's story actually gives us 3 really practical keys. And these aren't just steps to follow, they're really questions we can start asking ourselves. It all comes down to giving our best, about why we serve, and about having a purpose that's so deep it fuels us even when other people just don't get it. So the first key is this: are you giving your best? Mary didn't bring her second best perfume. She brought the most valuable thing she owned. No one made her do it. It was her choice. See, a beautiful life isn't about just checking boxes or meeting the minimum requirements. It's about choosing to offer your absolute best, whether anyone else even notices or understands. Second, it's about the heart of our service. You know, it's pretty easy to serve when you get applause and recognition, but are you willing to serve when it's thankless? Mary's act actually got her criticism, not praise, but that didn't matter to her. True service is about the giving itself, purely as an act of love. And number 3, this one's huge. Do you have a why that seems kind of illogical to the rest of the world? A beautiful life often runs on a different operating system. To the disciples, Mary's motivation was just foolish. But her why wasn't based on dollars and cents. It was an act of pure worship. And this, right here, is the crucial point. When you decide to live for beauty, for a purpose that goes deeper than just success, there are going to be people who just don't get it. They'll look at your sacrifice and call it a waste. They'll see your dedication and think it's strange. But for you, it isn't a waste at all. It's worship. It's an expression of what you value most in the world. Which brings us all the way back to those 2 blueprints for life. The tower builder is always exhausted, always looking over their shoulder, anxious, comparing themselves to the next tower over. But the gardener is focused on the soil right in front of them, content in the simple act of cultivating. And their goal isn't to be the highest, but to create something beautiful. So that leaves us with the one big question we all have to answer. What are you building? In your job, in your family, in your life? Is it a tower designed for success, designed to impress? Or is it a garden, cultivated day by day to create something truly beautiful? And that brings us to our Life Plus moment. Here's one practical thing you can do today. Just take 5 minutes. Identify one tower in your life, something you do out of competition or fear, and just ask yourself, how could I turn this into a garden? How could I focus on beauty here instead of just success? It's a small shift, but it can change everything. Life Plus, grace in life. See you next time.